who came from such a musical family that not only was he the founder of the first conservatory in Russia in St. Petersburg, his brother was the founder of the second conservatory in Russia in Moscow. Well, today I want to tell you about a Russian pianist and composer by the name of Anton Rubinstein. Anton was born in 1829 in a small village in what at the time was the Russian Empire. It is now in Moldova. He grew up in an upper middle class family. His father was a merchant and also a factory owner. They were a Jewish family that later converted to Russian Orthodoxy, and this kind of started somewhat of a conflict that we're going to see later on. Now his mother was a pianist, and she started teaching him very young on. Very young. Like at the age of 3, he started taking lessons, and he showed such a tremendous amount of talent. Like we've seen with many child prodigies, he's really one of those. And by the time he was 9, he was giving his first concert. His mother said, "Oh, we need to get more lessons." So she was a concert pianist, but she knew that she couldn't give him everything he needed. So she got up and moved him to Moscow. Now there wasn't any conservatory to go to, but there were some great teachers there. And so he got a teacher by the name of Alexander Valoyin, and he did great with him. Not only was he his piano teacher, he also became his mentor and then also a manager, and he took the kid on the road. It wasn't just a one-off touring. It was touring for a long time, over several years. Now, while in Paris at one time, while he's performing there, he meets none other than Chopin, and he also meets Liszt, who both were very impressed with him. Unlike many child stars, he continued to be famous and continued to move on as an adult. He didn't have the formal lessons, as I said before, but he did have this private mentor, and he studied all the time, but also touring all over and hearing music from all over and being exposed to all this, that also really influenced his playing and his later compositions. This immersion in European culture, like all over, it definitely gave him this cosmopolitan musical identity that he was really known for, but also later on it gave him this identity crisis. He was studying all the greats, and a lot of that was a German romantic music. Later on, he was said, hey, the Germans say I'm too Russian, and the Russians say I'm too German. The Jews say I'm a Christian. The Christians say I'm a Jew. I don't know who I am. By this time, Russian national music starts becoming a thing, and we've been talking about that over the last few weeks. The Russian musicians, composers, they really wanted to form their own identity, and he kind of was on the outside of that. He wasn't like he was against it, but it just wasn't as important to him. Funny though, even though that was not his driving force, he is the one that founded and started the first national conservatory in Russia in St. Petersburg. This was in 1862, and before that time, people, if they really wanted to study music, they either had to find someone like his mom did for him and really study under that one person, or they'd have to go abroad and study there. And he made it so now the great musicians can stay in Russia. In 1865, he marries the love of his life, Vera. They have a good marriage, they have children, they have a family, and for all we know, it was pretty stable and good, but he was gone a lot. Even after he toured, even after he had children, he toured all the time. Part of that might have been that his position in the music world in Russia, even though he did found this great school, it was a little complicated. So we had that mighty handful that we talked about with like Balakarov, Mussorgsky, Rimsky-Korsakov, all of these greats. And he wasn't in with that group. That wasn't his people. They were very much, we want Russian music to only be Russian. And here we have Rubinstein, who just loves all the music, including the German music, and they were not seeing eye to eye. Interesting, though, because he did end up hiring Rimsky-Korsakov to be a professor at the school. That doesn't mean he didn't have friends. He did have friends. Actually, he ended up being a relatively close friend with Liszt and also Clara Schumann. And so then, of course, also Brahms, because Miss Schumann and Brahms were often together. And Brahms had a lot of respect for Rubinstein's performance and also for his music. Something he did in the 19th century that not many composers and performers were doing is he went to America and did a tour. Not only did he do a tour in America, it was an exhaustive, crazy amount of concerts kind of tour. In 239 days, he performed 215 concerts. That sounds exhausting, and I'm sure it was. One of the interesting facts is that he insisted on being paid in gold. He didn't trust paper money from different currencies, and so he was paid in gold. He became an international famous superstar, kind of like Liszt at the time, um, but he was also absolutely exhausted. Now, mostly what you read when you look up Anton Rubinstein is about his piano performances and how skilled of a pianist he was, and that's all true. But he was also a very prolific composer. He wrote 20 operas, he wrote 6 full symphonies, he also wrote chamber pieces and songs. So there's quite a vast catalog of all his works. His most famous and successful opera was called The Demon from 1871, and it stayed in rotation for a long time. It's quite entertaining. Yes, he was composing and yes, he was touring, but when he was back in town, he was teaching at the conservatory, of course. I mean, he's the one that helped create this and set the foundation for this. But then he resigned from the place that he started. And he resigned because the government put a quota on how many Jews were allowed to be taught there and teach there. He himself wasn't identifying as a Jew in practice. They had converted to Orthodox at this time. But this is wrong. This should be about music. This should be about how good are you? How passionate are you? Like, it should be about talent and not about anything else. So he resigned and left. A quick aside, Anton wasn't the only very good musician in his family. He had a brother by the name of Nikolai Rubinstein. And he also started a conservatory in Moscow, and he was also good friends with a boy named Tchaikovsky. Well, he's a man. Um, just interesting. What an amazing family that would have been, right? In his later years, he's very tired. He is not touring, or not very much at all. So he, at this point, is mentoring, he's conducting, and he's giving private lessons, not teaching at the school anymore. One thing he did that was really lovely is once a week, he would give free lessons for gifted and talented students who just didn't have the funds to go to school. By this time, he is wildly revered in Russia, even by people that weren't always agreeing with him. He had a lot of respect for what he did. And then quite young still, by the time he was 64, he passed away in St. Petersburg. He had some heart issues. But think about it, he's only 64. He is known worldwide. He has toured the entire world. He has started this great foundation for education, music education in Russia. He himself has trained many of the next generations of musicians, both composers and pianists. And also he has composed so much and left us with this enormous body of work that we get to enjoy. And even though people aren't very familiar with his body of work compared to some of the others, he has left such a legacy because there is the conservatory, and he did help create this model for systematic training. And maybe because he never felt at home anywhere, and maybe because he never felt he belonged anywhere, he was one of those that was able to create a place where people felt at home and people felt like they belonged. Go and listen to something by Anton Rubinstein.